Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Empowering Musicians podcast. I am your host, Michael Manley, and according to my count, this is either the 31st or 32nd episode. And I feel like it feels like it's gone by so quickly, but I'm just wanting to sort of note that milestone today because I just started this podcast not really knowing where it would go. And I've just had some amazing guests. You can always find my podcast on YouTube. If you don't catch it on one of the LinkedIn or Facebook feeds, it's on Audible as well. And I'm working on getting it on iTunes. So hopefully you'll find all those back episodes and take a look. This week, we had Thanksgiving here in the United States, which I think has traditionally, regardless of how it's been interpreted, kind of been a celebration of abundance and gratitude, right? So we open our houses, we open our tables to friends and family. And it really, I think, is rooted in this idea that like we define success as this shared communal success where nobody's going to go hungry, nobody's going to lack or want. And so this idea of having more than enough for all is kind of the opposite of what a lot of people refer to as the scarcity mindset, right? So a scarcity mindset is really focused on limitation and lack. And it's a zero-sum game, right? So if I get more, or if somebody else gets more, somebody else has to get less. That's essentially the idea of this finite, limited, zero-sum game, I'm calling it. And how does this show up? So I think in the regular world, outside of like the artist bubble, right? So in life in general, I feel like it shows up in a couple different ways. And the biggest example I can think of is narrative around minimum wage, right? So I spend a lot of my time thinking about these issues because I am an artist, but I'm also involved in the labor movement. And the minimum wage in some parts of the country is still like, I think the national minimum wage is like $7.50, something like that, $7.50. And if the minimum wage were adjusted for inflation, it would be something like $24 in today's dollars, right? So it's way out of whack. There's just no way to live on a minimum wage in this country. But every time there's a discussion about it, right? Like if there's talk of nationally raising it, the first thing everybody says is, not everybody, but the first thing that the media grabs onto and that certain people say is, well, you know, they're just going to pass the cost on to me, right? Like if that Walmart worker were to make $10 an hour, I'm just going to have to pay more at Walmart, right? Or, oh my gosh, what if a McDonald's hamburger costs $7? Like what would happen to the world, right? So it's complete BS, right? But this idea that if we did something good for the lowest workers in terms of pay, right, the lowest paid workers, that it would somehow negatively affect it would disrupt the entire system. Now, ironically, there's never a discussion about how a maximum wage affects the cost of a hamburger, right? Nobody says, well, if Elon Musk has, you know, tens of billions of dollars, what does that do to the economy, and what does that do to our ability to all live and share, right? So our abundance mindset is automatic when we think about people that have a lot, right? So scarcity and lack tend to breed more scarcity and lack, right? So we don't think about Bill Gates and Elon Musk affecting the price of our hamburgers. But what we think is, oh my gosh, if somebody got $1 more an hour, that would somehow make everything so much more expensive. And I don't know how I would live, right? So I was thinking about this and how does this show up with artists? And before I get into that, I do want to thank my friend Abba who's watching, who's left some comments. And I am seeing the comments. I I can't type comments back, but I can note them here as we go along. So great to see you, Abba from Nairobi. And I know that Abba is in a group that my friend Martin has started of Africans who are dealing with this exact same thing, right? How to get out of this scarcity mindset and how to really focus on the fact that we can all succeed, right? And we can all have this understanding that of abundance and gratitude, right? And those things have to go together. You have to be grateful, and you have to think about the fact that there is enough for all, right? It's this Thanksgiving theme that I'm focused on this week. And so how does the scarcity mindset show up for artists, right? So I've been noticing this a little bit lately because it's actually come up in conversations, right? So was talking with a colleague and noting that a local theater show here in Las Vegas had successfully had a campaign with their stagehands to unionize, right? So the reason people unionize in our country and really around the world is because they want to find some way to improve their work life, and the best way to do that, and in some cases the only way to do that, is to form a union so that you have a collective voice in your workplace. And so if somebody had said that to me, if I was reversing this conversation, my first thought would be, wow, let's try to get the musicians on board, because the musicians of this production currently have no union representation. And what opportunities does that create for us? Can we use that to build momentum with musicians trying to gain a voice as well in their workplace? And so that would be my reaction. The reaction of the conversation I was in with this other person was, oh God, I hope they don't cut the band, right? So this idea that, oh, these stagehands might be getting a little bit more over here. So naturally, my first thought is, well, are they going to cut the band because now they don't have enough money to pay everybody what they need to pay them? Again, it's this zero-sum game that goes through our heads. What's another one? Another one is, in the nonprofit world, this is really prevalent, right? Like, oh, well, gosh, it would be great if we could have gas money or for travel, since we're driving 50 miles to this gig, or, it would be great if we could just, have a higher wage, right? Like, we're just not being able to pay our bills on what we're making. But, oh, if we ask for more, this nonprofit is going to go out of money. They're going to go out of business, right? Like, they're just going to go out of business. Or the other thing I hear a lot is, another theater situation. Well, if it would be great if we had a union contract, but they might cut the band, right? Like, we have a really big band, and I would hate for it to go from 15 people down to 12 people because they can't afford 15. And again, all of these things are part of this lack, right? And when we're artists, we tend not to make a lot of money, at least on at first, right? And so we are focused in a lot of ways on this lack and the fact that we are trying to pay the bills, and we're trying to get our careers off the ground. And it can be really easy to get in this mindset of limitation, right? That there's only so much to go around, and if I get more, it has to be taken away from somewhere else, right? If the minimum wage goes up, my burger's going to cost $8, right? None of it is real, but it's real in our minds, and we have to find ways to sort of get out of that. And the other last thing I hear a lot is, well, they're just going to replace us with a recording, right? Musicians, if we ask for more, they're just going to they could just replace us tomorrow with a recording. And so who benefits from this kind of mindset, right? In terms of the world, right? If we're workers, and artists are workers, if we're artist workers, or if we're workers at McDonald's or Starbucks, who benefits from us having this scarcity mindset going on in our heads, right? The people that benefit are the employers, the bosses, right? The people that decide things and that have the power over what we make. They're the only ones who benefit from us. We never benefit from it, right? And in fact, if you've been paying attention to the news, there's been some really prominent campaigns with Amazon and with Starbucks that are that are in the news because they're such big corporations, and also the orientation around union organizing is so different with sort of younger generation folks than it was with my generation. And I was kind of this last generation where it was really fashionable, and still is in a lot of circles, to kind of trash labor organizing and unions as being irrelevant. That was for people that shoveled coal and the world has moved on. And none of that is true, right? Like what we're seeing now is we're seeing that workers need to have a voice, just like they always have, whether they're baristas, whether they are workers at Google, right? Or workers at Amazon. And every time workers go public with their campaign to have a voice in their workplace, what happens is the employer invests a lot of time and money into what we call an anti-union campaign, right? And so what that is in part designed to do is sow fear and scarcity, right? So the scarcity mindset is a tool that is used strategically when people are fighting workers having their own voice and having power in their workplace over what they make, over the working conditions, all these things. It's what we call part of the anti-union campaign, or the boss message, right? So some of the ways to combat this, I think, are just to think to yourself, like, well, would they really replace me with a recording? Like if I'm that unimportant to the production, they could do that right now, right? Like this production, wherever it is, could replace me tomorrow with a recording, and why haven't they? Or would they really go out of business? I mean, whose organization is this? Does it belong to this boss, or does it belong to our community? And when they really let that happen, right? So it's really important to understand and recognize when you're having these kind of scarcity, thoughts of scarcity, and running what is the anti-campaign, as we call it in labor organizing, on yourself, right? Just doing it yourself. And we do it to ourselves, right? And it's really easy to think about that in terms of ourselves as artists. Another scarcity mindset program. It's good that I'm making money. I wish I made more. I just feel so fortunate to be able to play the kazoo, right? Or the balalaika, or the harp, or whatever your instrument is, right? I feel lucky to dance. I feel lucky to do this and this and this, right? And I always use this example because it was so extreme. And it was from a campaign that never really got off the ground. It was more of an exploratory venture. And the reason it didn't go anywhere was because the employer found out very, very early that musicians were interested in unionizing, and were able to run this anti-campaign, as I said, very, very early in the process. But there was a show, and it was called Blast. It was based on DCI, Drum and Bugle Corps International. There's a lot of these people that compete. It's a huge thing where they do these really elaborate field shows. And they put their show in a theater, and they were paying their musicians just really very, very little. And some of the musicians they were hiring from outside of that drum and bugle corps world, from conservatories and colleges of music, because they needed to beef up their sound. And these workers understood how screwed they were getting. So they had made overtures, and I went out with a colleague from Local 802 at the time, named Mary Donovan, and we were investigating, wanting to have some worker meetings, see what was going on. And I just remember talking to this young woman who was a flag twirler, and I don't know what the official name for flag twirlers are, but maybe it's color guard, I guess. In any case, in the drum and bugle corps world, you age out at like 20 or 21 from being able to continue. And this was an opportunity for them to continue in a theater and do what they loved and whatever. And she said to me, I just love twirling the flag. It's my favorite thing in the world. And I would do anything in the world to be on stage and twirl the flag. And I just thought to myself, well, the company's being very generous in paying her anything, because if she got paid zero she would probably do this, right? So one of the things we have to avoid also is this idea that we're lucky to do what we do and that we would do it at any cost. Because if you would do it at any cost, you probably would do it at no cost, right? And this isn't to say that we sometimes don't do things at no cost, right? I currently work with a local wind orchestra that I'm trying to help grow to be a professional ensemble. But I know from serving on the board of that organization that there's no money right now, right? And we're building it. We're trying to get to there. So so I'm willing to donate my time to that because I'm trying to get it to the next level. But there are times when we're in these for-profit situations. In that case, it was a for-profit show, where people just have this mindset that they would do anything, quote, to do that task, right? Whether it's twirl the flag, play the trombone on the unicycle, or whatever it is that they love to do. And if we have that mindset that we would work for any amount of money, it probably means we're going to work for the lowest amount of money, right? So you have to create sort of, I think, some structure and boundaries for yourself. Like, yes, I love doing what I do, but I have to understand that if I do this, I need to be compensated fairly, right? And what does that mean, right? In my situation, my example I gave, it's fair. My compensation is zero. I'm willing to do it because I'm building an organization, right? From the ground up. It's completely tiny budget, but incredibly artistically worthy. And so I'm willing to do the work to try to build that organization. And I'm willing to work for that, right? In that one situation. I'm not willing to work for that over here, right? Or over here. So we have to always understand that, that there is a scale, right? We have to understand what's respect. What does it mean to be respected, right? What is appropriate? And that's something that I think a lot of workers don't even consider, is like, what's an appropriate wage, right? And I talked about this in some other episodes about, playing for no money with this organization called the Desert Winds, for me, is not at all exploitive, right? I'm not being exploited by anybody. I'm doing it for the love of doing it because it's a great ensemble and I'm trying to help them grow. If I was offered $200 to play with Lady Gaga, I would be ripped off. That would be a ripoff if I was offered that money. And I may not take it because the tickets are going to be $700 each, right? So, but understanding this idea that if we improve our own lives, that other people don't have to suffer, right? Like the workers at Amazon can get paid more an hour, and Jeff Bezos will still be a billionaire, right? Like both of those things will happen. It doesn't mean that that he's going to suffer, right? To give you like the most extreme example. So getting out of the scarcity mindset is really about being abundant, being grateful, having this abundance mindset and being really grateful for what we have. And I thought, again, Thanksgiving is a great time to remind ourselves of that. I did want to speak about abundance, right? And gratitude and giving. Because I think all these things are linked. And we are approaching a tradition here in the United States called Giving Tuesday. And this is something that happens the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, and the Tuesday after Black Friday, and the Tuesday after Cyber Monday. So there's a lot going on this week. And Giving Tuesday is the day where we have an opportunity to highlight those causes and nonprofit institutions that really mean a lot to us and that we want to invite our friends and family to contribute to. So this Giving Tuesday, I've selected the Making Music Matter Foundation, which is the parent organization that produces a wonderful wind ensemble called the Desert Winds, which offers concerts throughout the year in Henderson, Nevada. We also have a band camp called Band Camp Reimagined, which aims to offer music education, concert band, education in the summer for any child in the Las Vegas metro area who wants to attend. So lots and lots of those kids attend on scholarship. We want to be able to offer scholarships to as many as who need it. And then we also have an honor wins program, which is a youth orchestra, a youth wind orchestra, that is. And all of these things are really important to us. We also offer chamber music. And it's on my feed. I will put it in the Empowering Musicians Facebook group as well. But if you are inclined to support any cause during Giving Tuesday, please choose a cause that you're passionate about. I tend to be passionate about this one and hope that you will consider contributing to it. And again, look for a post on my Facebook wall on how to do that. Very important to me because I really believe that this organization is trying to break down access barriers to the arts. And that is something that is very top of mind in the arts world today, right? So one of the things that I remember as a child is this idea that I was very talented at a young age. As far as music went, I didn't have a lot of local resources. I was fortunate in that my family was, well off enough that I had access to a car. I could drive all the way to Baltimore to play in a youth orchestra. I was able to go to summer camps and pay that tuition to have those training opportunities. And all of that set me up to go to college. And I did go to college on a scholarship. I wouldn't have been able to without one, right? But in order to even get that far, I had to have all of these advantages. And, I didn't have anything locally. There was no local, youth wind orchestra. There was no local youth orchestra, period, right? And so I would drive all the way down to Peabody in Baltimore from way out in Western Maryland every Saturday, and would go to summer camps that, my parents were able to afford to send me to. And not every child has that. So one of the things I love about Making Music Matter Foundation is that it really is trying to make the arts accessible for the community here in the Las Vegas and Southern Nevada community. So look on my Facebook feed if you're inclined to support Giving Tuesday. Definitely check out makingmusicmatterfoundation.org. We have a wonderful founder and conductor named Dr. Charles McGuire, and he is just done wonders with this ensemble. And as a musician, it's okay. If you're an orchestra musician or you play a wind instrument and you're in an ensemble, the biggest thing that we do 90% of the time is complain about who's on the podium, right? It's like complaining about conductors is just part of our lives. And so when we run into a conductor who really knows what they're doing, it's rare. And so one of the reasons why I also support this organization is that I just think Chuck is an amazing musician and conductor. And he's doing really interesting programming, trying to really commission some exciting new works. Earlier this year, we commissioned a work from a young composer who plays in our ensemble to commemorate the 5th anniversary of the shooting that happened outside of Mandalay Bay here in Las Vegas. And it's incredibly powerful to do those things and to be relevant in that way to our community. And, not everybody's doing that here in Nevada. Not everybody is trying to speak to the moment. And so I'm just giving this extended plug again for Making Music Matter Foundation. You can check us out at makingmusicmatterfoundation.org. Check out my Facebook post, and please subscribe to the page here on Facebook if you use Facebook. Looking forward to a busy December. I'm probably going to take a few weeks off, but I appreciate those of you who are watching always. And remember that abundance and gratitude is going to really be a foundation for getting out of this mindset of, if I get something, somebody else has to go without, right? Because in the world, in the macro world, right, of employment and of the arts. It's just not true. So I'm going to leave you with that. Have a great holiday season, and I will see you all next time. Take care.